Reading. So we've we've established and found a very significant statistical structure that distinguishes pre and post 9/11 texts. That before 9/11, reporting was more narrative, descriptive, and uncertain. After 9/11, it somehow becomes more positive and forceful, um, academic and institutional. A little bit of a strange finding that we're not going to really understand unless we start reading very carefully and very closely. So what we want to do is we want to look at the texts that ranked very high on the factor, texts that ranked very low, and see if we can make sense of the statistical finding. So what we're going to do is reopen Docscope here and get it back. But instead of MTV, which looks and reads in a whole corpus, we're just going to look at single text. So in some sense, Docscope really is designed at the first pass, to simply take a corpus, a large corpus, and turn words into numbers, put those numbers into statistics, find some big patterns that are meaningful and that take up a lot of systematic real estate of the text, find what texts are most implicated in that large statistical finding, and then go back to STV in order to inspect what's going on in those texts so that we can understand the statistical finding and see if we can validate it. So here's STV, and the two texts in this video we're just going to look at. You could look at many at the top, many at the bottom. We're just going to look at the very top and very bottom. So the first text representing the top of the factor, which is post 9/11, the positive and the institutional. We're going to open it up and we're going to look for November 2nd, 2001, less than 2 months after 9/11. Oops, we're going to look at post. So post 9/11, less than 2 months after, so 11/2. And that's right here. This is emblematic of what it means to be at the top of the factor, and we can actually expand this. And now if we actually turn on positive, and we actually may look further down at positive, we see that this positive is coming from positive acts and emotions, but mainly positive relations. And yeah, and mainly positive relations, and it gets very, we may even want to go down past that, but it becomes a little bit unwieldy, so I would just stick with positive relations here, 22. And you can see major Muslim organizations issue joint statement. That's inclusive, positive. Join our fellow Americans, helping to carry out the crime. You know, we are going to bring to justice those who are carried out the crime. International, our country, our government, look at how closely the Arab American reporting is trying to associate itself with American values. And there are many explanations that people give to this, but 9/11 was a time when, after 9/11, any Middle Eastern restaurant would put out American flags to show, don't hurt us, we are for American values, we do not believe this act was a good thing. So you can see that a lot of the positivity, the inclusiveness, is actually coming from a urge to belong and assimilate. Also, these things were carried out from the George Bush administration. And Dr. Malki and I, after 9/11, actually used the same data to publish a paper on Arab American responses to 9/11. So we see this at the top of the factor. If we go now to the bottom of the factor, pre 9/11, and the emblem for this is 1997 12/12, pre 9/11. Let's see. Okay, Okay, 1977, 12/12, you'll see that this is a very short piece. That uncertainty, where's the, well, let's see, here's the description. There are 5 descriptive things: temple, at the, temple, press, not hugely important descriptively. Narrativity, 21 things. Last month, was enrolled Thursday. You see, narrative is really governed by temporal expressions to a large extent. Remaining, were, so past tense, were, following, was enrolled. So it's really a story. And of course, the terrorism is coming from tourist attacks being identified. 2 of the 6 militants who killed 58 tourists in a Pharaonic temple last month. So one could imagine that, we should also look at uncertainty, which is just one thing: anonymity, on condition of anonymity. Not a big element of it, but uncertainty is probably making its way in there because there are some uncertain elements, and probably the baseline for uncertainty is quite small, which means that anything that arises with uncertainty may have made it into the factor. But basically, we can see that before 9/11, the Arab American press, when they report on terrorism, they're reporting on terrorist incidents. And maybe in the context of discrimination against Arabs in America. But the point is, it's more narrative reporting, what we'd expect. After 9/11, there is a very large attempt for the Arab American press to associate with American values and rally around the American flag. And so that seems to be an effect that we are seeing here. You can go on and look at more text and see if you can validate that in your own creative way. All right. Thank you.